Hey everyone, Michelle Seidling here with another episode of Food Experience Unplugged. Today we'll explore how to make family dinner time more manageable. Here to help us do that is Marie Fiebach, the founder of Feed Your Family Tonight. This podcast is available on multiple platforms, including Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, and others. Please be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to be informed as new episodes become available. If you enjoyed today's episode or any of our episodes, please be sure to rate and review the podcast on your favorite platform. Also, check out our website at foodexperienceunplugged.com for some resources as you begin your health journey. Marie Fiebach, welcome to Food Experience Unplugged.
Oh my goodness, Michelle, I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Well, we are so excited to have you as the founder of Feed Your Family Tonight. That
Yes.
is fantastic. And you are like the go-to family dinner time guru, as far as I'm concerned anyway.
Well, I'd like to call myself a weeknight dinner expert. I help busy families get weeknight dinner on the table, even when life is crazy. And, we all have crazy lives. And so there's just a few little tricks that I can give you that'll help manage that weeknight dinner hour and make it a little easier in your home.
Excellent. Well, we are excited to dive in and hear all about it. But first, will you take a moment to introduce yourself and what brought you to this point in your life, in your career, and why family dinner time?
Well, sure. I am a married mother of 4 teenagers now. All of my kids are teenagers. I have an 18-year-old boy, a 16-year-old girl, and 13-year-old twin girls. And years ago, I was sitting on the sidelines of competitive soccer practices and competitive soccer games because my twins were playing competitive soccer. And all of the parents, this is always happening right at the dinner hour. And the parents are saying, we're going to go hit the drive-through, we're going to eat dinner, get homework done, get the kids in the bath, and get them to bed. And I was doing all of those things except for hitting the drive-through. And the moms around me saying, how are you getting dinner on the table? And it was something that I did naturally. And I had to reverse engineer what I was doing so that I could teach it to them. And that was the seeds of Feed Your Family Tonight. And so I now help busy parents manage weeknight dinner hour. I do a weekly cooking segment on my local ABC affiliate, and I have a podcast, Feed Your Family Tonight. And then most recently, I've been helping chefs and food bloggers land and execute their first TV cooking segment. After 2 years of being on TV regularly, I've learned a lot of the tricks of the trade, and I am sharing my knowledge that way. But I have always had a business in me. I was a stay-at-home mom for many, many years and then started working a contract job. And the contract job was ending in 2017. And that was the time that I was having all these moms ask me about how I was getting dinner on the table. And it was at that time that I took an entrepreneurship class. And the leader of the class said, go with what you know and with what people are asking you for help with. And family dinner was what I knew, and it was what lots of people needed help with. And so that's how I got to be here with Feed Your Family Tonight.
Wow, that is amazing. I love the go with what you know, but also that so many moms and so many families are just struggling with family dinner time. I mean, why is it such a struggle?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. One of the big things is sometimes we get in our head an idea of what dinner has to be, or it was coming from how we were raised. Dinner had to be a slab of meat, 4 sides, and a starch, and we have these expectations of ourselves. And in addition to that, we have really busy lives. Our kids are in lots of different activities. If you're a parent, if you are working full time, you're having a demanding work schedule and maybe even a commute. And all of these things are taking away from our time. And so often dinner becomes an afterthought rather than focusing on, we know we have to have dinner. What do we need to do to make it happen? And so everybody's got time constraints. Everybody has things that are pulling at them. And here's the other thing is I go and I speak to lots of moms groups and PTOs talking about weeknight dinner, and they come to this talk thinking they're going to learn about recipes. And weeknight dinner is not about the recipes. It is about managing your time managing your energy, and setting appropriate expectations. Recipes, we have thousands of recipes in our hands, in our phone. How many times have you said it's 5 o'clock and you have some chicken breasts and you need something to cook and you type in chicken breast recipes and you start scrolling through your phone, and one recipe you should have started last night and another recipe has mushrooms and your kids aren't going to eat mushrooms, and another, and after 30 minutes of looking for a recipe, you go back and make one of your old standbys. Weeknight dinner is not about new recipes. It's about making dinner work in your home.
I love that. That interesting that it's just, yeah, and I get it. Even, I'm guilty of that too. Just kind of, oh, what's the new recipe? Is there some fancy thing? And, I love that it's not about the recipe, it's about making it work for you and your schedule. And I really admire and appreciate all that you're doing for moms and making that work. Now, you mentioned a couple minutes ago about reverse engineering the process. Will you tell us
Yes.
about that a little bit?
Sure. Let me just kind of talk with you about what my Feed Your Family Tonight success path for dinner is. I call it my public service announcement. I am a child of the 80s, and if you were raised in the 80s, you remember these cheesy commercials that were meant to teach morals. Feed Your Family Tonight has a PSA. And the P stands for plan and prep. I have a free weekly meal planning sheet that your listeners can get at feedyourfamilytonight.com/plan. And it kind of outlines how this process works. But with this plan and prep, you start with listing your activities. In my home, I'm listing what's happening in the afternoon after school because that's when I'm running around and I'm trying to figure out how we're going to get dinner in between all of the kids' activities. In your home, it may be what's happening at work during the day. You might have a day of meetings back to back to back, and you know when you get home, you're going to be toast, right? How many of us have had that where we know we've got a crazy busy day? Or if you're someone that has little kids and you've taken them to the doctor and you know they're going to be clingy all day today, it doesn't matter what's affecting dinner time, but you start with that. Then you do the S of my step, which is called set a dinner bell. And that is the target time that you are going to eat. Because in so many families I have found, it's hard to figure out when you're going to eat, let alone what you're going to eat. I've had days where I've had girls that have piano 3:45 to 4:45, soccer from 5 until 6, and I have to be up at school at a PTO meeting at 7, and we have to eat at 6:15 the second we walk in the door from soccer. So I'm going to write 6:15 on my dinner bell. That dinner bell is that target time. I wish I could say we sat down at dinner at 6 o'clock every night, but in my house, it doesn't happen that way because sometimes we've got late meetings. Sometimes we have kids' activities. Sometimes we have to get to the choir concert. All of these different things that are affecting when we're going to eat. So we plan, look at our activities, we set a dinner bell, and then we plan our meals around those two things. So on a day when you're busy, you need something that is in your slow cooker or in your oven. On those busy days where I'm running from piano to soccer to PTO, I usually have roast chicken because I get them ready the night before. I throw them in the oven before we run to soccer practice. We get back from soccer practice, I pull it out of the oven, and dinner's ready to get on the table. And so some days I have time to stand at the stove and cook a stir fry because I've got 30 minutes right before we have to sit down to dinner and I can be actively in my kitchen cooking. And some days I have to have things that are ready to go that I can prepare ahead of time and either slip in the oven or have going in the slow cooker. And both are good, but you have to use different kinds of meals for different kinds of days. On days when you don't have a lot of energy, take something from your freezer. Take something that is partially pre-made, something that you can, that might be a day to have a rotisserie chicken, and then you're adding some vegetables and a salad to it on the side. But look at your energy level, look at your activities, and then the magic of Feed Your Family Tonight happens with the A. We've talked about P, plan and prep, S, set a dinner bell, A, always have a backup because everyone at some time in their life is going to have a day where the wheels fall off. And it might be that you're stuck at work or there was an accident and your commute took an extra 45 minutes because you had to wait in traffic. It might be that your kid had to go to the orthodontist and you're sitting in the orthodontist office for 45 minutes while they're fixing a bracket. All of these different things are reasons why the wheels fall off. And what I want families to do is to have 2 or 3 meals that they can get on the table in 20 minutes or less with ingredients that they keep in their house all the time. Because by the time you need a backup, it's too late to go and get the ingredients. And it's going to take you 20 minutes to get to the drive through and get home anyway. So some of my favorite backup meals are bean and cheese quesadillas. I keep a bag of tortillas in the freezer. I keep a can of refried beans and a bag of shredded cheese in the freezer. I put those together with some frozen vegetables, a salad, maybe some cut up fruit, and dinner's on the table in 20 minutes or less. A lot of families use breakfast for dinner as a backup meal. So they keep a box of pancake mix and they keep a dozen eggs. Maybe they keep some bacon or sausage in the freezer. But you can get that on the table when the wheels fall off because we're all going to have days where it happens.
Yes, definitely. I love that. I love the backup plan part. So I guess the planning for the backup plan would start back in the P step.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I like to meal plan for a week at a time. I personally have a flexible work schedule, so I usually plan on Mondays. A lot of families plan on the weekends. It doesn't matter. But if you plan for much more than a week, you're not going to know what your schedule is really going to be like because things will always come up. But usually, planning for a week, you kind of know what your activities are going to be like, you know what your evenings are going to be like. And so you can plan meals that work around your schedule.
I love that. I love working around the schedule instead of orchestrating, guess, your schedule around the meals. That's much easier and perhaps less stressful too.
It's so much less stressful because, if you're trying to make a recipe on a night where you're running from thing to thing to thing, and that was the night that you planned a recipe that takes 30 minutes of standing at the stove, you're going to get frustrated or you're going to give up and you're going to hit the drive through or you're going to be a not very nice person to be around and your family's going to be annoyed with you. How do I know these things? Because it's happened. I've been there. I live this every day in my home.
Okay, so speaking from experience, I love it. Now, I've encountered, and you likely have too, that a lot of people say, well, meal planning's too restrictive. I don't want to be restricted to, I have to eat certain things or whatever their explanation is. Do you have any thoughts or feedback on that?
I do because I've been there and I have done it. When I was early married and had young children, my idea of meal planning was having a well stocked pantry and a well stocked freezer. And at 5 o'clock at night, 4 o'clock, if I had my act together, I would go to my pantry and I would pull out some protein out of the freezer and I would pull some ingredients from my pantry and I would fix dinner. But do you know what happened? Is we had the same things over and over again. We ate nothing but ground beef and chicken breast in 6 or 7 different applications, which isn't necessarily bad. We ate pretty healthy. I mean, we got our beef from a local farmer. It was organic grass fed beef. I mean, we ate well, we ate plenty of vegetables, but there wasn't a lot of variety. And with this Feed Your Family Tonight system, it's set up so that you can be successful and you can actually have more creativity and more variety. I talked about plan and prep, but I didn't talk about prep very much. And let me tell you, on this weekly meal planning sheet, there's a place for prep. And I have you do prep on the day it needs to be done, not the day of the meal. So if I'm having roast beef on Sunday, I'm going to write on Friday, take roast out of the freezer. Or if I'm having red beans and rice on Wednesday, I'm writing on Tuesday, soak beans. And I get in the habit of doing this prep when I'm cleaning up my dinner dishes because my kitchen's already a mess. It only takes me a minute or two to do these little tasks, but I'm setting myself up for success later in the week. If I had not thought to plan to have roast beef on Sunday, I would not have thought to thaw my roast on Friday. And you get into this rut of having the same thing over and over again, and you have less variety. So I would argue that meal planning for a week is actually giving you more freedom, more creativity, and it is less restrictive because you know the parameters of what you're trying to fix on a given day, and you're choosing the right recipe or the right meal for that day.
Interesting. I love that. So that still does not restrict you. If you
No.
had planned to have roast on Sunday, but something happened and you ended up needing to have the roast on Monday, for example, you're not restricted to eating a certain food on a certain day.
No, and it's not about, so many people get into this like meal prep thing and they are, they're planning out a whole week of meals and they're chopping everything on Saturday and they're spending all of their energy on a Saturday or a Sunday doing all of their prep and all of their cooking. And then everything is prepped and they have to eat that exact thing. I will tell my followers that at least once a week, what I have written on the plan is not going to happen. And I adjust. It might be adjusting as simple as I was planning on making tikka masala with my chicken, and my kids kind of said, that doesn't sound good. So I made a chicken stir fry. So it might be something as simple as using the same protein in a different application, or it might be, yeah, I was going to do that roast on Sunday, and then we had the opportunity to go to my in laws for dinner. And so we saved the roast for the next day. The thing about meal planning is it keeps you out of reactive mode.
Mm,
Reactive mode is not a fun place to be in. You can change your plans and you can still adapt and adjust, but it keeps you out of constantly reacting to your situation around you rather than having to quickly get something together because you forgot that your kid had to be at a soccer practice right in the middle of dinner. You can say, oh my gosh, that soccer practice is right in the middle of the dinner. That kid's going to need a late plate. So I'm going to get dinner ready early, or I'm going to have everybody eat a little bit later and we're going to have a really healthy, hearty snack before in the afternoon. But reactive mode is just a hard place to be. And this way, you are being intentional. And that is the key to getting out of reactive mode.
mm, I love that. No, I mean, in getting out of reactive mode, that cuts the stress level at least in half or way down for you and for the family.
Well, and here's the other thing is when you don't have a meal plan, how many times a day are you thinking about what you're going to fix for dinner? Are you sitting
All
at
the
work?
time.
Right? Right? You and it takes a lot of brain space and it takes a lot of mental energy. And you don't know how much energy it's taking until you are free of that. I take all of those decisions and I put it into 10 to 15 minutes at the beginning of the week. And then I know my prep. So I don't think about fixing dinner until 5 o'clock at night when I have to fix dinner. And I don't even know what I've written half the time. My kids say, "What's for dinner?" And they look at my phone on my Instagram account to see what I posted because I post my meal plans every week for my followers. And they go to my Instagram account to find out what's happening for dinner because I don't even know. I don't think about it because I know I have done the prep and I'm ready to cook at 5 o'clock at night, no matter what I have planned.
Mm.
And that mental energy of figuring out what's for dinner is gone. And when you get that brain space for the first time, you are going to feel so light. It is amazing how much brain space we take trying to figure out what's for dinner.
Oh, yes, definitely. I love how you encourage people to keep ingredients that you normally use on hand so that you can have backups as well as, what your intended meal is. Now, where do new meals come into play in the mix, trying to integrate those?
Sure, because we all need some new stuff every now and then. I recommend doing new meals in my home. I try them on the weekends or I try them during the summer. And there's during the weekends, there's less pressure. If dinner happens to happen at 7 rather than 6, it's not as big of a deal as it is on a busy weeknight. Or during the summer, our family has a slightly more relaxed schedule, but trying to try a new recipe on a busy weeknight is setting yourself up for stress because inevitably you're going to have forgotten an ingredient or you haven't read the recipe exactly and you forgot there was a step that was supposed to be done 30 minutes ago. And I mean, how many times have we done it? And then dinner is at 8 o'clock at night and everybody's hangry and cranky and they've snacked their way. And then dinner gets on the table and they're not going to eat it because they've snacked so much because they're waiting on dinner. You have a little more flexibility on the weekends or in the summer. So that is when I tend to try my new recipes. I really try really hard to avoid new recipes on busy weeknights because I'm just trying to get from one thing to the next. It's get home from work, get the kids fed, get them to their activities, get them to bed, get homework done. I've got too many other things to think about on a weeknight than a recipe that I have to concentrate and stand by the stove for a couple hours figuring out how it works.
Okay, so that even, making time for new recipes,
Mhm.
allocating you in case something takes longer or you're not able to get whatever ingredients. I love including that in the PSA system.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, yes. And yeah, and again, I love a new recipe. I'm a food professional. I'm always constantly trying new things. And part of my job is to do that. But I personally don't do it on a Tuesday night. And I save it for the weekends or maybe a Tuesday night during the summer when there's a little bit more relaxed schedule.
Good point. Excellent. Now, how does family dinner time and the planning and so forth, what role does that play in building healthy habits?
Well, the statistics are clear that children that eat family meals, it could be dinner, it could be breakfast, could be lunch, but family meals regularly have statistically better outcomes. There is less substance abuse, there is less depression, there is less anxiety, there are higher grades. And I want to set up the best for my family by creating the habit of a daily mealtime. What I'm doing is I am building stability for my children. They
Mm.
know to expect family dinner. And I will tell you that 95% of the time, it's get your elbows off the table. This is not a cocktail party. Sit down in the chair. We are having dinner now. They're poking at each other. And I mean, my kids are teenagers and they're still doing this. They're not toddlers, but sometimes they act like them. And it's a little bit of chaos. But here's the other thing is because we have created this safe and stable place for our children, every now and then a tender topic will come up. And they know that the family dinner table is a safe place to bring up the tender topic. And we will sit at the table and talk through that with our children. It is a place where we can share our family values with our children and a place that they know that they can come to us with their problems. But that wouldn't happen if this were not a regular habit in our home. It takes
Mm.
time to build that connection with your children. It takes time to create that as a safe and stable place. The other thing is, the more you do something, the easier it gets. You teach habits. You know that. Once you get to where something is routine and regular, it becomes so much easier. And so when you get in the habit of fixing family dinner, the temptation to run to the drive-through is much less because you know that you have that backup ready when the wheels fall off. You know that you've planned ahead and it's a busy day, but all you have to do is turn the slow cooker on. You know that you have what it takes to get dinner on the table and you are not in that reactive mode. And habits so much are about being able to make the wise choices rather than reacting to our circumstances around us. And so the family dinner is a cascade of good habits. When you are eating at home, you are statistically eating healthier, you're eating lower sodium, you're usually eating more fruits and vegetables just by eating at home, no matter what you're making at home. And so you are building healthy habits almost without even thinking about it, just by eating at home.
Because you're creating that environment so people can not only eat healthier, but that's conducive to building relationships with your family and with, the stability. I love that people, all family members can rely on, okay, we're going to have dinner at this time and really be able to focus on each other too.
Well, and when you are in a rhythm, you can feel that rhythm. And
Mm.
again, my weeknight dinner rhythm is not dinner at the same time, but my kids know what to expect. And your family will start to know what to expect and they will start feeling that rhythm. And it makes everything easier because I'm sure you've experienced this where like you are on track, you've got your planning, you're doing your healthy exercise, you're eating well, and everything just is easier. You can make wiser choices when you are in your zone and creating this dinner time zone, this dinner time rhythm makes other choices easier too.
Mm. So it's a conduit for other healthy habits as well.
I firmly believe that the family dinner table is the core. And if you can get that in a good rhythm that works for your family, other blocks that might be not working so well in your household start falling into place. I've
Interesting
experiencing
point.
that. I've experienced that. I've seen that in my children's lives. When mom starts not having stable family dinners and I kind of fall off the rails a little bit and get off the bandwagon, the whole family feels it. But when I have this one thing under control, even if other things in our home are chaos, and trust me, they can be, but it's easier to face the chaos when you have this one piece of stability working in your house.
I love that. Now, you have worked with so many different people, families, individuals. Are there some success stories of how people have really navigated or at least working toward mastering that PSA type of activity?
Oh my goodness, I have a slew of success stories. One of my friends I was talking to recently, her family was transitioning from a house full of toddlers to a house full of grade schoolers. And she was overwhelmed because it was seeming like her food budget was out of control, and she wasn't in control of the money in her home, and she wasn't having enough food to feed her family. And I sat down and I talked with her and I walked her through a few things, and the first thing she realized is that she now has a house full of full eaters. So she needs to make a full portion for everyone in her house, whereas before she had some younger kids where they were kind of eating a half portion. And she started doing that. And then she said her husband liked to take leftovers to work, and I taught her the trick of how, when my husband does the same thing, I actually pull his lunch for the next day out and put it in a container before I start serving the family. So if someone goes
Mm.
back for seconds, they're not eating what I had planned for his lunch the next day, and they can choose to eat maybe some of their less preferred foods as seconds because what I had available was no longer an option. She also started doing one of my big things is I believe in about once a quarter doing a big shopping trip for basics if your budget can allow it. And what that means is I go and I buy all of the toilet paper, shampoo, deodorant, and then basics like pasta, rice, beans, canned goods, tons of frozen vegetables and fruit. And I stock my pantry about once a quarter. And she said her budget didn't allow for that. But what she did is once a month, she went and did a shopping trip that was not groceries, but it was all of her dry goods, like her toilet paper, her deodorant, she had one kid that was still in diapers part of the time. And she bought all of that. And then when she went grocery shopping, all she had to do was shop for the fresh meats, fresh vegetables that she needed for the week. It helped her get a better control of her budget. And she started planning meals in the portion size that worked for the way her family is. The flip side of that
Mm.
is I have a dear friend, Krista, who had two teenage boys that have gone off to college. And she and her husband have gone from feeding eight, because teenage boys eat like two, right? So they've gone from eight portions to two portions. And so
Mm.
she has used my system to size down what she is cooking so that she is only making what she and her husband are consuming, and they're not stuck with tons of leftovers of the same thing. So she has learned to use my system to work for her empty nest. So what I like about the way I teach, and I'm going to toot my own horn a minute here, is that
Mm.
this is not about getting a meal plan and you copying what I do. This is about looking at your individual situation, what is happening in your family now, and adapting this system so that you can be successful in your home, because no two families are the same. And any kind of pre done meal plan is going to need some adapting for you. And you might have certain food allergies, or you might have strong food preferences. So, this isn't a one size fits all plan. This is a plan where, what is my situation right now? And
Mm.
how can I make dinner work right now?
Mm. I love that. I love that sense of individuality and really knowing that you have that flexibility, whether you're downsizing, you're upsizing, you're using a backup plan. There's a whole slew of flexibility there to at your fingertips.
Well, and it's funny because you talked about earlier how meal plans feel restrictive. And I said, this is kind of the opposite of that. It gives you freedom. When you're talking with children, is that boundaries give freedom. And in a way, that's kind of what this plan does, is it gives you a fenced backyard, and you can run around and play in that backyard however you want to play, but it gives you that boundary that you can be extra creative in, because you know your parameters. And that's what the Feed Your Family Tonight system gives you, is it gives you a box to play in, and then you can play and make it work for you, but you have this box that guides you along the way.
Mm. Yes, and even with the budget, because that's a lot of a big roadblock for some. Well, my budget doesn't allow for this or that with regard to meal planning. You still
Yes.
have that flexibility to do what works for you.
100%. And if you are on a tight budget, I will tell you, people talk about New Year's resolutions, where New Year's resolutions usually fall in one of three categories. They have something to do with money, something to do with organization, or something to do with health. When you
Mm.
start meal planning, you are going to help all three of these things. These are the main pain points that we have as Americans: money, health, and organization. And when meal planning hits all of those, You don't have to have a full stocked pantry of anything you may want, and then you have food waste because it expires before you get to it, because you know the meals that you are going to make that week and you buy the ingredients that you need for those meals. You're going to eat healthier because you are naturally going to be eating lower sodium. You're naturally going to be eating more fruits and vegetables. And you have that organizational piece where you don't have the chaos of thinking all day what's going to be for dinner. And so you have given yourself the gift of organization. If you're on a tight budget, this gives you freedom to plan within your budget because every family is different. What my family of 6 spends on food is going to be very different than what another family of 4 is going to spend on food, or a pair of empty nesters are going to spend on food. But I know what my budget is and I can plan my meals. So one day I might have a more expensive cut of meat. And I balance that out by having a meatless dinner on another day. And so you can balance your budget better throughout the week or throughout the month because you are planning ahead, and you can choose to have more expensive things on some days, less expensive things on other days. And it becomes part of that rhythm that I talked about. And you start feeling that rhythm and you get in your groove, and it helps your budget too.
Mm, I love that. That meal planning addresses so many different aspects of the food, the feeding process, the dinner time process, as well as building habits, and maybe even giving you additional skills and habits that you hadn't already originally intended.
Oh, yes. And I think you talk about habits. You know that when a person gets one good habit going, it's so much easier to pick up the next good habit. And then you get 2 good habits going, and it's easier to pick up the third next habit because the chaos in your life starts going down when you start building stronger habits. And the less chaos you have, the less reactive you have to be. And so it's one of those foundational blocks that builds on the next. And it's so much easier to build when you have a strong foundation.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, now what are for those just getting started, for those overwhelmed or, tempted to go through the drive-through, what are some good first steps to really start this whole process going?
Okay. The first step is get that weekly meal planning sheet at feedyourfamilytonight.com/plan. That weekly meal planning sheet will walk you through. And maybe you can't plan a whole week, but what I want you to do is I want you to plan 3 days. And I want you to think about your activities and your energy levels. And I want you to be really honest with yourself. Now is not the time for aspirational Pinterest planning. Now is the time for saying, whoa, this week's going to be a doozy. I need to get a few things in place so that I can be successful because I know on Wednesday night I am going to be toast. And plan a few breaks too. And maybe a break for you is going out to dinner. Maybe a break for you is buying something that is partially pre prepared. Maybe a break is that's the night that you're eating at your in law's house. I eat at my parents' house once a week, and that is my break. I don't have to cook that night. So you need to plan yourself some breaks too. Don't go into this marathon, and weeknight dinners are a marathon. They are not a sprint because we have to do them day in and day out. So don't step into this marathon without training. Start with just something simple, planning 3 days, using that prep so you know that you need to take something out of your freezer or you need to soak some beans. Sometimes I'll even like start marinating something the night before. And again, if you do this, start finding a time when you can do your prep. Some people like to do it in the morning while their coffee's brewing. And some people, like me, I like to do it when I'm cleaning up my dinner dishes because my cutting board's already out. I'm going to have to wipe down my kitchen anyway. So I'm saving the time of that extra step of cleanup because everything's already out. So start thinking of one time a day that you can do 2 minutes of prep. And I'm really saying 2 minutes, like take the roast out of the freezer or make a quick little marinade and put the chicken breast in the marinade. Start finding 2 minutes a day and plan for three days of meals. And that is where you can start.
I love that. No, it's simple, it's easy, or you're working toward getting used to it being easy, but it's something that some people can gradually phase themselves into and really get used to meal planning.
Well, exactly. And here's the thing is, when I first started this, I would kind of plan one week and then I'd go off the bandwagon for 3 weeks, and then I'd come back and plan another week. And then you know what I did? Is once I started Feed Your Family Tonight, I committed to posting my meal plans for my followers. And if I did not have that commitment to my followers, there are weeks where I wouldn't have meal planned. And so if you want that accountability, post your meal plan, post it on your social media, post it in my Facebook group at Feed Your Family Tonight Facebook group. Get in the habit of posting it so that others use that for inspiration and you're accountable to someone besides yourself. Because having an accountability partner, whether it's real or contrived, I mean, posting it on Instagram, that's kind of a contrived accountability partner, but it works for me and it helps others as well.
Absolutely. And whatever accountability, you've got accountability to yourself as well as to your followers, to your family members, and that all of that helps to feed those habits, so to speak.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We all need someone to keep us accountable on our habits, right? Because it's easy to slip. We need someone to kick us back into it.
Definitely. Well, Marie, how can people get in contact with you?
The easiest thing to do is check me out at feedyourfamilytonight.com. My podcast is linked there. If you have questions, you can always come to the Feed Your Family Tonight Facebook group. And if you ever want to see my meal plans, I post them every Monday on Instagram, and I'm at Marie Fiebach.
Okay, we will include all of those in the show notes. And Marie, it has been an absolute pleasure to really help people reduce the overwhelm and focus on eating healthy, but not stressing out so much about it.
Oh, Michelle, thanks so much for letting me come on. I always want to help families get into the habit of weeknight dinner.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.